Hello and welcome. This is Dee Dee Calusi. I'm the Associate Director of Financial Aid Advising at the CU Anschutz campus. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you spending time with us to understand the financial aid process and the financial aid options available to you to help you pay for medical school. The goal of today's presentation is to help you begin understanding the different things that you can do to prepare to pay for medical school, as well as equipping yourself with financial information to be successful throughout life. Today's agenda, we have quite a bit of information to cover, so I'd encourage you to take the copy of information that you received, including the recording, as well as the handout of the documentation, in order to use as a guide and move through to begin planning for your medical school financial aid. We're going to cover everything from applying for financial aid to covering what that financial aid offer will include. We're going to talk about budgeting and credit management because those are your tools in order to be financially successful in medical school. We're also going to present scholarship information, so a lot of material that'll be very helpful for you. So the first thing is that you do need to apply for financial aid, and you're going to do that first by visiting studentaid.gov. You're going to create an ID, which acts as your digital signature when you're filling out federal student aid applications, loan documents, things that are really important. If you're going to submit the 2025-26 free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA form for short, you're going to list University of Colorado Denver with the school code 004508 as a recipient. Even if you're waitlisted, we would still encourage you to list the University of Colorado Denver. Now, things to know about this FAFSA application. It will only collect the student, as well as your spouse information if you're married. You cannot include any parental information. And the FAFSA form is an annual application that you will need to renew each year of medical school to ensure you have a financial aid offer available. Now, the important things about gaining access to the various systems that we use, the admissions office is going to contact you and share information about creating a student account. This will be for your student email. It'll allow you to gain access to our student portal. That's called UCD Access. And encouraging you to also submit that card of residency information. This allows us to determine what tuition status you are responsible for and the amount of financial aid that we need to cover. So please make sure that you use these various communications to claim your account and then also gain access to our student portal, because we will be able to share with you if there's anything else that we need to collect in order to offer your financial aid for this upcoming year. Next, we're going to dig into the financial aid offer. This is what we're able to share with you about our various funding sources to help pay for medical school. So the first thing is the timing. We want to make sure that you understand that this is a bit of a moving target. Our ideal timeline is to have these out to you no later than mid-April, so that you have at least a couple of weeks to decide, what questions you have and make informed decisions before those commitment dates for medical school. Understand that, unfortunately, if you are a waitlisted student, we will not be able to make a financial aid offer. Offers are only made to accepted students. However, if you are waitlisted, I would encourage you to still list University of Colorado Denver as a school that has permission to gain access. In the event that you are accepted off the wait list, we can then move forward with making an offer as quickly as possible. Now, when you fill out that FAFSA application, we're going to automatically consider you for any need-based financial aid that you will potentially be eligible for. That will be shown in the offer. Now, the offer itself will have an estimate for tuition, fees, and other allowances that we're going to cover in this presentation. The final figures sometimes for these numbers, especially tuition, can take until about June to be finalized. So this is our best estimate at the point in time that we share the letter with you that reasonably we can expect for anticipated costs. We will communicate with our students about what the final figures are throughout the year as they become the final numbers. So in financial aid, we use a lot of terminology, and I'd like to kind of start with the most important one that students need to spend some time understanding when they're looking at the various financial aid offers from different schools. So The cost of attendance is a number that the school calculates for a student. It will include tuition and fees. It will include funds for books and supplies, living allowances to pay for your basic needs. And at CU, we include an allowance for health-related expenses. So what you're seeing here on the screen is for our current first-year class for the 24-25 academic year. This is what I would consider to be a reasonable base estimate that you can use to start your planning for the upcoming first year of medical school. We will revise these numbers annually and make adjustments depending on what's happening or anticipated to happen for your academic plan that year. So things can change in terms of maybe additional funds for academic travel when you're completing your clinical rotations or taking exams. Each year you will be shown this new cost of attendance number. So the last thing I'd like to highlight here is that at Colorado, we have a unique situation in terms of talking about a tuition status and the amount a student will pay. Our Colorado resident, which is probably a familiar term for most students, are students designated as resident. Here is their tuition and fees, living allowances for that first 12 months of the program. Now, students that are not designated as a Colorado resident will likely be coded an accountable student. With that status, they are accountable to pay an additional support fee. This support fee must be paid for each of the 4 years you're in medical school. The unique part about this, while you cannot get rid of the additional accountable support fee throughout medical school, you can become a Colorado resident. Now that may open up additional financial aid opportunities to you, but there is a link on the screen that can help you better understand that accountable student status. Funding sources. This is a really important thing for you to start thinking about what types of financial aid can be offered to you. Making sure you understand those various elements of the financial aid offer. So the first thing that we do with your FAFSA is take a look and determine your financial need eligibility. So if you demonstrate what we call exceptional financial need, we will automatically include our need-based grants and scholarships in your offer. The next type of funding that we potentially will offer is called a federal direct student loan. These are loans guaranteed by the U.S. Department of Education. Students don't need to find a lender with this type of funding. If you accept the loan that we offer through the direct loan program, we will help facilitate the procurement of those funds each semester that you're in school having accepted the aid. Now, there's some different things about these types of loans, and so I want to cover that. Making sure that you know the interest rates are fixed on these loans, but each year there's a new set of interest rates. So by the time you graduate medical school, there is, reasonably, if you were to take both types of loans, the chance that you'll have 8 different types of interest rates that you're going to be managing. All of them will be fixed, but it's just something to know that, as you're going into this, you will have different rates for each year of school. Now, the different types of loans that you will be offered through the direct loan program include the unsubsidized Stafford, which has a limit of about $47,000 for the first year of medical school. That one currently has an interest rate of 8.05%. It does accumulate interest while you're in school. However, there is no required credit check in order to receive those funds. So that's the unique feature of that loan. The next and last type of financial aid that we can offer medical students is called the Graduate Plus Loan. Now, this loan does not have an annual limit based on statute. However, it's the amount that is left over after we total up your cost of attendance, subtracting other sources of financial aid. The amount that's left over can be covered by a Graduate Plus Loan. Now, the nuanced details of this loan program. Currently, the interest rate is 9.05%. It does also accumulate interest while you're in school. However, this one does require an approved credit check. That credit check will be done on behalf of the U.S. Department of Education if you decide to accept this loan. Now, the things that you can do as a medical student in order to control your student loan borrowing and ultimately your educational indebtedness begins with budgeting. Within our student cost of attendance, there's an amount that students are allowed to utilize for their living expenses. Ours is currently at about $2,700, and the intent is to cover the rent for a modest one-bedroom apartment in the metropolitan area, along with the utilities. So this also covers things such as your groceries, food-related expenses, car-related expenses, your personal hygiene and recreation, also the renter's insurance that you should carry in the event that your personal belongings need to be replaced, and then broadly other financial personal obligations. So note that the vast majority of students are using loans to pay for their living expenses. And if you're not comfortable with having debt, this is the area that you will spend the most time focusing on in order to lessen your overall indebtedness. So you have control over what you decide to use for living expenses. Things like having a roommate, commuting to campus, using the RTD pass that you pay for as part of your tuition and fees. Little ways can add up over time so that at the end of 4 years, you have borrowed less and you have less debt to repay in the future. One of the life skills that we want to focus on going through medical school is really understanding your money management. And there's a lot of resources out there, so I like to give you sort of the best that I think are relevant to a future physician. The first thing you're going to want to do is create a budget, and linked here in the presentation, you can track your spending, you can outline your goals. If you would like further information, I'd encourage you digging into the AAMC FIRST program. It's tailored information to the MD student, resident, and future doctor. So they really want to encourage you to live like a student now so that you do not have to live like a student when you're a doctor. You know, using tools such as aiming to have your expenses be less than $2,700 right now is really important, so that by the time you start medical school, that transition into using financial aid and having a budget to make informed decisions really is easier for you. If you have credit card debt, making sure that you have paid off as much as you can before medical school starts is really a great goal to set for yourself at this time. The other thing that you're going to want to try and do is create an emergency fund for yourself. I encourage students to have at least $1,000 that they can put in a separate account in the event something happens. They have a little bit of extra cash to, take care of that emergency, and then work with financial aid thereafter to see if maybe they need to adjust their financial aid. The other important thing that you'll want to consider and spend time thinking about what your healthcare needs are is what you will be using for your health insurance coverage. At the University of Colorado Anschutz campus, health insurance is required, and it is verified each academic year that a student has a plan that fits the criteria that established by our campus. So by default, all students will be enrolled in our student plan. However, if you have comparable coverage, you're allowed to waive out of that. But know that that is an active process each fall semester that you're going to have to go through. If you'd like additional information, we have a link here that you're able to understand the current student plan and see the cost of that plan. Now, as you're preparing to come to medical school, consider that you might have to move, even if it's a local move, not too far across the state. Even that move can be expensive, and you'll want to make sure that you're budgeting, saving additional funds to cover those expenses. Everything from a security deposit to a moving truck, maybe some new household supplies. These are things that cannot be covered with your financial aid funding. So also making sure that you have set realistic goals for yourself. Again, we've talked about making sure that you don't have credit card debt and that you have a $1,000 emergency fund. Those are two really good and excellent goals to set for yourself over these coming months before school begins. Here on this side, we are sharing money saving tips from medical students. So these are things that students have shared and we can certainly agree with as ways to save so that ultimately you borrow less for your medical school degree. So, consider all of these things as opportunities, maybe even a little challenge to yourself to see if you can be creative with your money management and the funds that you're using to pay for living expenses. One of the really big things that I'd like to encourage you right now is to think about the things that maybe family, friends, loved ones are going to help pay for while you're in school. Maybe it's your cell phone bill or your car insurance, or really a big one is health insurance. If you have someone providing support for one of these areas, make sure that you don't take the financial aid offered to cover that amount. So for health insurance, the allowance is about $350 per month. When you stretch that out over a year, if somebody's paying for your student health insurance, you can decrease your borrowing by $4,200 and not have any impact to your overall living expenses. So it's a really great opportunity for you to focus on your unique situation and financial matters when deciding what opportunities you have in order to adjust your borrowing so that it accurately reflects your needs. The next important thing about coming into medical school is that you understand how to responsibly manage your credit. Credit, think about it as your financial grade in life. And the better you do with making sure that grade is high, it opens up a world of opportunities in terms of being able to access things that don't cost as much interest. So that everything from a car loan to a home loan to a line of credit. And surprisingly, to some folks, insurance, things for health insurance, life insurance, we want to make sure that you understand your financial behaviors, and credit is a representation of you and the risk that you present. In terms of it being related to financial aid and paying for medical school, it does impact your ability to obtain the Graduate Plus loan, one of those federal loans that is used oftentimes to cover the rest of your tuition or living expenses. With the Plus Loan program, they're not looking for a really high score. However, they are checking to make sure what you have is adverse-free history. So no delinquencies, court judgments, bankruptcies, other negatively perceived financial matters on your credit report is what they're looking to make sure are not there. So if you need help reading your credit report, I'd encourage you to go through the WMC First website that we previously shared, and then also using your 3 free credit reports through annualcreditreport.com to ensure that your credit history is clean and accurate as you come into medical school. Know that responsibly managing your credit will reward you in many ways, not just in medical school, but in the future, in times in which you might need to apply for credit. So the most important thing a lot of students like to focus their time and efforts on is finding free money to pay for medical school, which I highly encourage. And I have some insight to share with you to make that process a little bit easier to manage. So the first place to really kind of focus your thoughts on is that scholarships come from various sources. And I know, just generally speaking, medical students feel overwhelmed when it comes to searching for scholarships. But when I can sort of compartmentalize them in the different ways that funding can come to a student, I think it helps you understand the ways in which you can approach finding those funds. So the first source of scholarship funding is through the financial aid office. So when you fill out a FAFSA application, you're automatically considered for those funds. If you're eligible, they will be included in your package. So that's a real easy way to at least check one box as far as funding that might be free in order to pay for school. Now, note that whether a scholarship or a grant that you receive, whether it comes from CU or a private entity outside of the institution, scholarships are always incorporated into your financial aid package, and it replaces your ability to borrow. So let's say you get a $1,000 Rotary scholarship. Once we find out that information, whether you tell us or we receive a check, we will make sure that your loans are reduced by $1,000. So instead of a $10,000 plus loan that you borrowed, you would now be able to take a $9,000 plus loan. Now, in the School of Medicine, they have a scholarship website. I'd encourage you to take a look at it. Note that scholarships are an annual process in the School of Medicine once you're a continuing student. So each spring, you'll be notified that the application is available and be able to take a look at the different pools or categories that you're welcome to apply for. I'd encourage you to focus on applying to one of those pools, as you can only receive funding from one of them. However, if you feel like you're a really great and competitive match for 2 categories, you certainly can apply for those other ones. So pay attention to communications from the School of Medicine about those opportunities. Know that if you're in a branch or a track, each of those might have an opportunity as well. So make time once you receive those notifications to set aside a block of time to work on your essays, gathering information in order to submit the best application you possibly can. Now, the third and probably biggest and most challenging area of scholarship support are the private sources of funding. Now, I can totally understand why this might be overwhelming to someone. And so I've tried to help you understand how to think about these and know the different places that you can find funding. So again, these are places outside of the University of Colorado. They could be from national, local, or professional organizations. They could be something related to an interest or a hobby that you have. There will be other programs that you hear about, and they are called scholarship service programs. These, in practice are things that pay for your tuition and fees. They can pay for a living stipend for you, really eliminating the possibility that maybe you have to borrow as much or any student loans to pay for that area of your medical education. In turn, you will pay them back with service after you graduate. There's nuanced differences and details between the various programs, so I'd encourage you to consider if you're interested in that at all. The programs that could be inclusive of these types of scholarships are from the National Health Service Corps, the Veteran Administration, and then the various military branches. Depending on your career interests, you might have a better fit within one of these scholarship programs. Certainly start doing your research now, seeing if this is a good fit for you. You want to make sure that it is one, both a good career fit for you, as well as a good lifestyle fit. So a lot of questions and information gathering you would want to do on your own since you're unique and wonderful. Now, there are scholarship search engines out there, and I've listed a couple here. That very first one, Scholarship Universe, that is something that you will gain access to once you are an accepted student and you've claimed that student account. So that's through the University of Colorado, Denver Anschutz campus. There are other things listed here. A lot of these things, you're going to be creating a profile about yourself. I'd encourage you to take the time to check the boxes and see if there's, something you hadn't thought about for yourself in terms of what may be relevant or applicable to your situation as you're going through these applications. Know the better application that you create about yourself, the better possibility it will find a scholarship that is a match for you. So in terms of sort of the sage wisdom that you need in order to be successful with scholarships, these are things that are tried and true that medical students and that I've observed over time that really do make a difference. Having regular time on your schedule to do scholarship searching or writing an essay, organizing things, maybe in a cloud drive so that you can keep track of this information easily. Always have somebody review your application before you submit it, just making sure that it's a polished product that you really feel like makes you stand out. Staying organized is often one of those things that can be challenging. So there's sort of an economy of scale would be to make sure that you create a cloud drive folder of this information, including all of your prior applications that you've written. If you have your resume, your CV, letters of recommendation, all those things can be hubbed in this one place so that when you find an application that is a good fit for you, that you can quickly access information, maybe even just reuse something, update it a little bit, make it, again, that polished product you would like to show why you are deserving of a scholarship. Keep track of the things that you have searched for, list things on a calendar and the due dates associated to it. I understand you're a busy medical student, so this is an additional task for you, but it does not have to be overwhelming and take a lot of time. So other tips that can be useful for you is thinking outside of just being searching for scholarships related to medicine, doctor, physician, etc. Think about the things that make you unique and wonderful, whether it's your hobbies, your activities, your volunteer affiliations. All of those are potential areas in which you might be eligible for a scholarship. If you can complement or marry the fact that you have that initial connection to the donor, along with the fact that you are becoming a future physician, that seems to create the most wonderful reason for scholarship donors to support you. So think big, broad, and be exhaustive with your scholarship searching. Every scholarship that we see come into our campus is wonderful. The students that spend the most time on this certainly are finding those niche areas in which they made that connection to the donor and were selected. So with that, I'm going to conclude our presentation and thank you for your time. Right here, you have our contact information. Know that the Central Financial Aid Office is located on campus in the Education 2 North 3rd floor Student Service Center, and we'll look forward to working with you. Take care. Bye-bye.